following announcement has been paid for by the new Howl Order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I'm, of course, your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, Washington is starting to build that cabinet that I referred to when we talk about turning over this front office. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, a lot of people want instant change and gratification right now, and it's just not feasible. You're in a season that's far from over. A lot of things can change. We know the NFL is a week-to-week league, and although we know who isn't a part of the solution, we still haven't rid ourselves of all of the problems yet. And thus, that won't happen until the offseason. But what you can start doing right now is start putting some of the pieces of the puzzle that you hope ultimately ends up being the solution together right now. And maybe this is one of those steps that they're making that we may not pay a lot of attention to, you know, but there was a ranking that ESPN did, I think, like 2 years ago. You know, some of these rankings, you take it for what it's worth. We were ranked as one of the worst facilities in the NFL. Duh, right? Kansas City was one of the worst as well, and they've won, you know, the Super Bowl last year and been to 5 straight AFC Championship games, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that stuff necessarily matters or not, but this one I think does, though. You know, there was a ranking of the worst and best analytics groups in the NFL, and Washington was tied for second worst in the NFL with the Titans, only better than Cincinnati, right? So, and you know, Ron often refers to analytics as if he knows what that means and how to use it. Clearly he doesn't. His actions have shown that. And when something doesn't work, he immediately says, well, the analytics said that's what we should do. And we know he didn't consult analytics at all. He just made a decision. It didn't work. And that's his way of trying to get out of it. That said, Josh Harris has shown that when he takes over an organization, one of the things he likes to do is put together a group of guys that are either as smart or smarter than him. And usually these guys have analytics backgrounds. As we move further into the future, analytics have become a big part of sports. Started in baseball, made its way into basketball, and now it's a huge part of football as well. Thus, Washington today made a splash hire, we think. I really don't even know what this is going to do and how it's going to impact us this year, if it will or not. But they hired Eugene Shen to become Washington's senior vice president of football strategy. Now, what does that actually mean? I don't know. All I know is the Ravens had this guy hired for a number of years. He was in Miami with the Dolphins, and he was also in Jacksonville 2 years ago. And so there was an article written by John Kahn that I think is going to better explain what he's being brought in here to do, or at least give us some sort of an idea and talk about his background better than I can, because I don't know anything about this guy and I don't know exactly what he'll be tasked with doing. But I do know anybody smart with numbers that understands when you should go for it, which I don't think our group has any clue when they should or shouldn't go for it. And not always does analytics make the right decision. Again, you have to take that stuff into consideration. There's nothing you can tell me, however, that the 2 games we've lost previous in each of the last 3 weeks against the Bears and the Giants, in each game we had a 4th and 2 inside the red zone. You're not telling me that analytics would have made a better decision than Ron Rivera did, which was to go for it. And you can even go as far back as the Eagles game when analytics would have probably told you, go for 2. You're playing on Thursday Night Football. You know, in 4 days, you can't afford an overtime game. You need to win the game right now or lose the game right now. Either way, you can't go to overtime. Go for 2. Analytics would have told him that. He would have done it. I think we would have won the game, but that's nor here nor there. Let's take a look at this article, an excerpt from the article written by John Keim on Eugene Shen, the newest member of Washington's front office. So I'll read this to you very quickly. The Commanders hired Eugene Shen as their senior vice president of football strategy on Thursday. Shen will oversee their analytics as well as their software development on the football side. Again, what does that mean? I don't know, but it sounds good. Shen will start November 6th, so he won't start for another week, okay? Shen worked for three other NFL organizations. He was the director of analytics for the Miami Dolphins from 2019 to 2021. For the Baltimore Ravens from 2014 to 19. That's the part that really stands out for me because Harbaugh has been big in the analytics game. He was one of the guys that was kind of out in front of analytics. He would catch a lot of flack for going for two at random times and, being aggressive sometimes where we thought it was unnecessary. And this was probably the guy kind of feeding him some of that information like, hey, John, you should go for this 2-point conversion here. Analytics in the data says that this is a good spot to do it, right? So I thought the Ravens stint really stood out to me because I've felt like this for a long time. John Harbaugh was one of the first guys to really, truly implement aggressively, repeatedly, even when it didn't work. He lived and died by the analytics. I thought he was one of the guys that was kind of at the forefront of it, and this guy was on that staff as they started to make that change, and so that means a lot to me. He served as the vice president of football analytics with the Jacksonville Jaguars 2 years ago in 2021-2022 season. He was working as a derivatives analyst for Millennium Management Global Investment when Washington hired him. So he was out of football this season, but had been in the league the previous 8 seasons prior to this season. Harris, also the primary owner of the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers and NHL's New Jersey Devils, made it a point of emphasis to bolster the analytics department in both franchises. Harris spoke at the 2020 MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. In a 2021 ESPN study, and this is what I was referencing earlier in the show, Washington was named one of the least analytically advanced teams, tied with the Cincinnati Bengals and only ahead of the Tennessee Titans. So I had it backwards. I thought, if memory served me correct, it was tied with the Titans, only ahead of the Bengals, but it was the opposite. Tied with the Bengals, only ahead of the Titans. Washington coach Ron Rivera said this summer that he was aware of how much Harris's other teams use analytics, but added that we've done it, we've used it. You're right, Ron. Good try. And then I love this last quote. I only added it in for humor purposes, right? This is a statement accredited to Ron, attributed to Ron, but I'm pretty sure if I had to guess, Ron did not write this. But let's read it anyway. This is a quote from Ron Rivera. Bringing Eugene's level of expertise to lead our analytics and software development enables us to build on our data capabilities to help inform decision making, Rivera said Thursday in a statement. Eugene brings a great deal of practical NFL experience, and we look forward to bringing him into our conversations about the vision of our team going forward. The willingness of our ownership group to follow through on their pledge to allocate resources to data and analytics is exciting for the future of the franchise. Closed quote. A future that you more than likely will not be a part of. But hey, go get him, Ron. You got an analytics guy, a real analytics guy, not the nonsense that you used to feed us after failed, decision making and say, hey, the analytics said this is what we should do. No, it didn't, Ron. No, it didn't. Anyway, we'll see what this means. We'll see how this turns out for Washington. We'll see if this makes us a better football team. If we noticed any changes in game, we'll see. We'll see how all of that works. But can't say they're not trying, right? Can't say they're not trying. So Washington hires Eugene Shen as its senior vice president of football strategy. He starts on November 6th. So we move on to in other news. Obviously, it's Thursday, so that means it's Coordinator Thursday. We heard from both offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. We also heard from a plethora of players. Montez Sweat and Chase Young were the most notable because of the impending trade deadline next week. Their names obviously are some of the bigger ones that are surfacing right now, specifically with this team, but just in the trade market in general. They're two of the bigger names that are looming around right now, floating around in football circles as to what's going to be their future, whether it's here with Washington or somewhere else. So we'll talk about what was said there here in a second. But before we get to any of that, you know what we have to do. We have to take a look at the injury report for both teams as we head into a pivotal Week 8 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. So we start with Washington's injury report, and we know Cody Barton and Sadiq Charles are going to be out of this game. So there's no speculation there. We know those guys will not play in Week 8. Curtis Samuel showed up on the injury report with a foot injury on Wednesday. He was limited Thursday. I have no doubts he'll be ready to go, and I expect him to be a full participant Friday and him to not be on the injury report Sunday. But again, we will see. Sam Cosmi was limited yesterday with a hip. He was a full participant today. He's going to play. Cole Turner, ankle, limited yesterday. Full participant today. He's going to play. Again, all of this is barring no setbacks or no further aggravation of these pre-existing injuries. Jonathan Allen, knee, was full both days. I expect him to play. Montez Sweat, finger, full both days. Expect him to play. Vidarian Mathis had his 21-day window, started and opened on Wednesday, similar to what they did with F.A., who came back and played that day, that week rather, when his window was open. I expect Vidarian Mathis to be active. I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm excited for Vidarian Mathis. A lot of you guys have been down on him. You can't help injuries. There's nothing you can do about that as a player. And so it's one thing if you're performing poorly, you're perfectly fine and healthy, but you're just not playing well. That's one thing. Injuries are a totally different story. I am a lot more lenient on players who deal with injuries because they can't help it. No player says, I want to get hurt. That said, they spent a second-round pick on him. People are killing him because they didn't want Washington spending a second-round pick on Vidarian Mathis. Didn't think he was worth it. Thought they could do other things with it. I'm anxious to see this young fella play because I actually think he can make a difference. I actually think he does something, and he can add to this team. I think Big Phil is actually a good football player, and thus I can't wait to see him out on the field and see what kind of contribution he can add to this football team. I can tell you this, even if it's only 10 to 12 snaps, it'll be much better than the 10 to 12 snaps we were getting out of Abdullah Anderson. So there's a positive. And then Benjamin St. Juste showed up on the injury report today with a thigh injury. He was limited, something to keep a watchful eye on. I won't make too much of it. I expect him to play on Sunday. But again, we can't afford for him not to play, as we've done this song and dance with the Eagles once before. But again, I expect him to be fine. Just keep an eye on that and see what it looks like on Friday. Hopefully, he'll be a full participant and there'll be nothing to see there. So, I don't think there's going to be any surprises on this thing. I think the two guys that we already knew coming into the week that were injured in last week's game that we knew weren't going to be available this week are out. I think everybody else is going to play. But again, we will see. So let's take a look at the Eagles. And they've added a couple of names to the injury report from yesterday. Yesterday, it was just Bradley Roby, Milton Williams, and Reed Blankenship. Today, they added 3 more names. I always tell you when it comes to the Eagles, don't pay any attention to their injury report. Most of those guys, if not all of them, are going to play. I feel the same way about this one. Bradley Roby is the only guy that won't play, if you ask me. And he could show up limited on Friday and play on Sunday. I think he's going to be out of this game with the shoulder injury. But Milton Williams, heel, limited on Wednesday, limited Thursday. I expect him to play on Sunday. Reed Blankenship, ribs. He's been a full participant all week. I expect him to play. James Bradbury showed up on the injury report on Thursday with an ankle. Same with Zach Cunningham. They're a linebacker, both limited on Thursday. I expect them to play. They have to report this stuff to the NFL. Those guys are going to play. And Jordan Davis, hamstring, limited. That's a little bit different. Hamstrings are tricky. We'll see if, he's able to practice on Friday. My guess is a little sore. Maybe it felt a little tight. They held him back a little bit, and nothing really too serious. And I expect him to be on the field as well. I think everybody except Bradley Roby is going to play on Sunday. So I'm not really putting too much stock into this injury report, as I usually don't with the Eagles. After last year when they had 67 guys on the injury report and they all played, don't really respect the Eagles injury reports anymore. So let's talk about what was said. So I thought Eric Bieniemy had his worst press conference of the year, but in saying that, I was actually pleased that he made a concerted effort to keep it to a bare minimum. Now, the way that he went about doing that was absurd. He used the phrase evaluating, and what was the other word that he used? So evaluating was one, and assessing, I think, was the other one, at least 100 times a piece. Every question, we are in the process of evaluating and assessing the players or the situations over and over again. He didn't answer a single question, maybe outside of a Sam question or two, right? There may have been one or two questions where he actually answered the question. Like JP Finley asked a great question about your first 15 scripted plays or so, whatever you script. Normally for NFL teams, it's 15 plays. But we were well into the second quarter when we got through 15 plays because we went 3 and out on every single possession, it felt like. And so he's like, you didn't get to your 15th play until, midway through the second quarter. That's supposed to be a script where you're going through the plays in sequential order, building upon the last play to score. It's not supposed to be broken up into 5 different possessions because you can't get a first down. So do you get away from the 15 or do you keep running those plays, essentially, was his question. And EB, knew it was a good question, but he had already came into the press conference in the mindset of, I'm not giving them shit. I got to be better. We got to be better. The staff has to be better. Everybody's got to be better. And we're currently assessing and evaluating everybody during this process. That was his answer to everything. Like, literally, you could have watched the first 30 seconds and said, oh, I got the whole press conference. Or maybe the first minute of it after he used that answer the first time. You could have just applied that answer to just about every question. So this was his worst press conference. But in saying that, I'm glad that he didn't give us 22 minutes of him bullshitting around and talking about what he was happy about seeing this and that. And, look, all right, we haven't played well. I haven't coached it up well. I haven't put us in the best positions. Let's just see what happens. He went Jack Del Rio on us, essentially. He just didn't do it very cleverly, that's all. But I'm not mad at it. All I want is results. I don't really give a shit what he says on Thursdays. I just want results. And if losing to the Giants is the wake-up call he needed to be a better coordinator, so be it. Jack Del Rio, I told you, after the disgusting performance against the Bears, I said, you're not going to get a 7-minute presser out of Jack unless we get hot. We haven't gotten hot, and you haven't gotten a 7-minute presser. This thing was barely 6 minutes long. Jack still got his humor, which is good, but he didn't really say much. He, talked about the Eagles, why they're good, talked about, and I've said this the first time when we played him, he's like, there's nothing you can learn about the tush push. There's nothing you can, there's no way that you better defend the brotherly shove. They're the best at it because they got a massive offensive line. They're physical. He talked about Kelsey being a great center and how quick he is. And then also he said they got a quarterback that squats like 1,000 pounds. Like, don't get in those situations is what he said after saying all of that, which that's always been my point is you just can't put yourself in those short yardage situations against the Eagles. You know what's going to come and you're not going to be able to stop it. You know what they're going to do and you're not going to be able to stop it. So just don't put yourself in those positions. Anyway, he talked about Forbes getting back on the field, which I thought his answer was perfectly fine. Like, Forbes played in like 2 or 6 snaps last week, and they didn't throw the ball his way, so there's really no assessing what he did. He got out there. He didn't wet the bed. They didn't challenge him. He didn't do anything stupid. Cool, right? We'll continue to give him more opportunities and see what happens when they actually do throw the ball his way. The biggest thing that he said is probably going to make a lot of you puke, but this is the reality of the situation. You asked for this, and I told you guys, stop it. You didn't listen. And then the football God said, this is really what you want? Okay, here you go. And so we know Cody Barton's out. They asked him, what's the response there? What are you going to do? And he's like, well, Dave played well for us. Dave is David Mayo. Yes, you're getting a nice heaping glob of mayo. Yeah, hope you're ready. Hope you like mayo on your sandwich, your linebacker sandwich, because you're going to get a nice heaping of mayo. He's like, yeah, Dave played well for us last week. Obviously different, set of skills between him and Cody, but we think Dave is a really smart player. He can do a lot of things for us, and we're comfortable with putting him on the field, and he's going to be the guy that sees the uptick in snaps. Mayo. Hope you guys are happy you asked for this. So, that was Jack Del Rio in a nutshell. And he also said, I don't talk to players about the trade deadline. That's not something we can control. And he made a joke. Oh, the Jack made a funny. Yeah, go Jack. The old ham and cheese sandwich line. Good for Jack. I like seeing guys laugh, even when shit isn't going well. Even though some of you want people to be miserable because we're not winning. Still life, you still have to be able to laugh at certain situations. So it's Wednesday. It's not Monday. Okay? It's Thursday, matter of fact. It's not Monday. It's hard for me to laugh on a Monday after a loss. By Thursday, I'm fine. So, anyway, you get to the players in the locker room. Terry spoke Wednesday, but that I hadn't seen that, so this was new to me, listening to Terry for 7. God damn, I love Terry McLaurin, man. Man, he's a great leader, and I think him and Sam are building a rapport. I really, truly do, and I really think that as they continue to grow, this offense is going to continue to grow. Because as Sam learns to trust him more in situations, and I talked about that third down in particular, and Terry talked about that third down where Sam thought he was going to run to the corner. He throws it out there. Terry runs right into Deonte Banks and runs a back shoulder fade. If he throws the ball to Terry, either it's a catch. If he throws the ball to Terry, right at him, as Terry requested, either one of two things are going to happen. Terry's either going to catch a touchdown or they're going to throw the flag for holding or pass interference. Because Deonte Banks was mugging Terry on that play. But Sam threw the shit like he was throwing it away, and it looked like a throwaway even though it was just a miscommunication, and that's what Terry was talking to him about on the sidelines at the end of the game. So I think as they continue to get more reps together, that's why it's important that players play together, because that's how you grow. That's how you build that continuity and that communication and that understanding that we're getting this look, this is how we're going to react to it. That's why I said I thought the Giants, even though it was a bad loss, I thought there was a lot of growing that took place in that game. There's a lot of things that I think they're going to take away from that game, how to adjust against the blitz, how to be more aggressive when you get one-on-one. I think there's a lot of takeaways, that Sam in particular, but him and the receivers can take away from that game and utilize, even if we get a brand new coordinator in here, brand new coach, everything, the whole 9 yards. If those two are still playing with one another, that's something that they'll be able to, no matter what scheme they're in, if we're getting this look, this is what we'll be able to change and do on the fly, right? That's what the best quarterback wide receiver combinations have. The innate ability to look at the coverage pre-snap and say, hey, you thinking what I'm thinking? Damn right. Let's do it, right? That's where we want Terry and Sam to get, and I think that they're heading in that direction. I just love Terry, man. He's such a leader. We heard from obviously Sweat and Young. They dominated the headlines today on social media. All the beat reporters were tweeting the same stuff out because it was pertinent information. We heard from Nikki Javala yesterday or Wednesday that a team made an offer on Montez Sweat. Obviously, she didn't know what the offer was, but an offer was made, and those guys are hot commodities, Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Even though an offer up until yesterday at least hadn't been made on Chase Young, I think he's the one that they would like to keep here, right? If they got to keep one, Young is younger. There's a higher upside, and I think that's the guy. Again, I know you don't want to hear this, but he's the more marketable of the two. And he's playing well. That's the most important part. Is he's looking like himself a little bit more. I still don't think he's there yet, but the fact that he's not there yet and he's playing the best football, arguably, of his career, speaks volumes. So, I think we're heading in the right direction with Chase Young. So, we'll see. But those two guys spoke in particular, and Sweat admitted, "Look, man, it's hard to block this shit out. I mean, I hear it, I see it." I know it exists. I know it's a business. This is the first time he's had to deal with it. I'd be lying as a fan if I didn't listen to Montez Sweat and hear that, hey, this shit's a distraction, but I'm gonna do my best to focus on Philadelphia. He sounded non-committal when he was asked, did he want to be here? Now, I mean, you could go with the standard line of what is he supposed to say? He could have said, I want to be here, but I can't control that. He didn't say that. He just said, I don't control that. I can control what I can control, and I've enjoyed my time here. Enjoyed sounds past tense, if I'm not mistaken. He could have easily just did what Saquon Barkley did last week. I don't want to be traded, but it is a business. I get that, and I can't control that. But he didn't say that. But I'm not nitpicking. Whether he wants to be here or not is besides the point. The fact of the matter is, trade deadlines on next week on Halloween, and if we don't win this game, the likelihood of Montez Sweat still being on the team when the players meet for practice on Wednesday, slim and none, is my guess. But we'll see what happens. As far as Chase Young is concerned, he took the other approach of, I ain't paying attention to that shit. As far as I'm concerned, since I've been here, my name's been in trade talks. So I ain't even tripping on none of that shit. I'm here to play ball. I'm focused on Philadelphia, and that's where his head is at. I've seen a change in Chase from his first happy-go-lucky, and maybe it's just the losing. I really think last year took a toll on him when he was supposed to be healthy and he wasn't playing. Because remember rookie season, Chase? Oh, he was a joy to sit down and talk to. Bubbly, laughing, joking, smiling all the time. That dude don't exist no more. And I don't know if this organization sucked the life out of him because we lose all the time, or if I really truly believe it's less about the organization and more just about all of the negative stuff that was said about him when he was hurt and when he came back and he didn't play. I think a lot of that stuff kind of made him, I don't want to say jaded, but it made his joyous, warm heart turn cold. And now when you see him in these interviews, it's like, I'm just doing this so I don't get fined. It's no longer fun for him. And I don't really give a shit if that's where he is in his mentals right now. I just want him to play good football, and that's where he's heading. And I hope that, football is still fun for him, but clearly he's not the same guy in terms of how he addresses the media. And I know you guys have seen it, but we don't even get laughs out of him. When he does laugh, it's because during this one, he said something, and I think I knew what he said, but one of his teammates was next to him and said, "Hey, you heard that shit?" And Chase was like, "Yeah," and he started to chuckle. But even then, it's like he didn't want to give the media the satisfaction of him laughing with them. Like, nah, y'all don't get no smiles out of me. Because y'all wrote shit about me. Y'all were criticizing me. Fans was criticizing me. All of y'all was doing me dirty. Y'all calling me a bust, all kinds of shit. Nah, I don't fool with y'all like that no more. That's kind of the energy he's giving off right now. And again, I don't blame him. And I ain't mad at him. I ain't glad at him, but I ain't mad at him. I get it. Whatever you got to use as motivation, use that. And right now, I think he's using all of the naysayers and all of the people that told him he would never get back to where he was, that called him a bust, said he wasn't worth the number 2 overall pick, this, that, and the third. I think he's using all of that as motivation right now. Because when they asked him, and when they do ask him about his health and how you feeling and do you feel like you're back, he's like, I was a good player, before the injury. Like, I know what I am, and I'm playing ball, like, pretty much. Like, don't ask me about, am I back to where I was before? Don't ask me that. So, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And I know you guys have seen it too. He's not that bubbly, happy-go-lucky, smiling, joking around guy that he was in his rookie season. That guy don't exist no more. And I don't know if that's a sign that he's not happy here in Washington, or if he's tired of losing, a combination of the two, or in my personal opinion, I think it has more to do with what he dealt with once he got hurt, the backlash of when he wasn't ready to play yet, even though the team thought he was ready and had been cleared and was waiting for him, and he was continued to decide to not play. I think some of the backlash he caught for that with the fans and with the media and people outside of his circle, I think he saw all of that, he heard all of that noise, and he's like, nah, F y'all. I don't fool with y'all like that no more. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to... you heard from Jahan as well, and he talked about getting involved early. He's like, hell yeah, that shit matters. He's like, bro, you feel like a whole different player when you get to rock early. Like, who told y'all that already? Like, it's not rocket science, man. I told you, like, psychology of the human mind and the brain, and if you've ever played sports, this shit is not that hard to put the pieces of the puzzle together, man. If you're, I just having played sports, it's easy to disengage when you're not involved early and often. It's easy to disengage. You want guys to be professional. You want guys to be locked in at all times. It's easier said than done if you've ever played sports. And I don't give a shit what level you play at. It's hard to ask a guy who hasn't had a target for 2.5, 3 quarters to just all of a sudden the ball comes his way, make a play. You want him to. Theoretically, he should, but that's tough. It's a lot different than Byron Pringle, who's only getting in on 6 snaps, and one of those 6 is a target for him in the 4th quarter. It's different. He only played 6 snaps. So when he got in, he got his opportunity. When you're playing 81 snaps and you only get 1 target, bro, what the F? It just... They got to, again, this falls on EB, because you don't have to have, it doesn't matter the coverage, the look, nothing. I can say the first play of the game, we're running a bubble screen to Jahan. It could get us a gain of 0, but he got a touch. He's now engaged. All right. He's got the juices flowing now. And he used the analogy of Steph Curry. He's like, yeah, Steph Curry gets going early. It could be a long day. Now he's got confidence and he's letting them, fly, and he's a different dude. I just, again, I'll never understand coordinators who don't understand that concept, but I digress. EB said he's got to be better. We'll see if he is on Sunday. Let's go behind enemy lines. 6-1 Eagles will be traveling to FedEx Field on Sunday. We've played this team before once already this season, a month ago. We had them on the ropes. We let them off the hook. The Eagles are 7-point favorites. So the Commanders are 7-point underdogs heading into this matchup. And that number could continue to rise. I think it's going to settle in somewhere in between this 7 and 7.5. I don't see it getting to 8 unless something happens between now and Sunday. I don't think anything from an injury standpoint either way can happen because unless, again, something could happen in practice on Friday. But if everything stays the same, I think that number probably settles in at 7. It could get to 7.5 depending on how the money is flowing. But 7 is the number, I think, and it's a good number. I think that's where it should be. They should be about a touchdown favorite. Anyway, I look at this game, and I'm just going to tell you this right now. The Eagles are overlooking us, but not for the reasons they have in the past. They know we're a formidable opponent. They respect us in that regard. They're not overlooking us because, like they did last year on Monday night, because they had destroyed us earlier in the season, embarrassed us at home, and they looked at us as a joke. And that's why they, slipped up. We caught them lacking, and we beat them in their own building as 11-point underdogs. That's not what's happening here. They played us earlier this season. We took their ass to the brink, took them to overtime, should have beat them, didn't. Should have gone for 2 first and foremost, didn't. But we had every opportunity. We were up 17-7 in the second quarter of that football game. We scored on the very first 2 possessions, went right down the field. They had no answers for our offense. And so they respect us as an opponent. So they're not going to overlook us because they don't think we're capable of beating them, as I don't think they respected us last year or in the first game this season. Even though we had beat them the last time we saw them and they were charged up and they wanted to beat us, I still think they felt like we were coming off of an ass whooping at the hands of the Bills. They still looked at us as they chumps for real. This time won't be the case. But I think they're going to overlook us because of what awaits them next week. They know that Dallas is looming around the corner in week 9. And because of that, I think they overlooked this week 8 matchup against Washington. They know Dallas is the team that they got to even look. They don't have to beat anybody in the division. They won the division last year. They're leading the division this year. They're clearly one of the best teams, not just in the NFC, but in football. They don't need to beat Dallas, but they want to beat Dallas. They know that the only team that's capable of catching them in the division is Dallas. So that's a big game next week, week 9. It's one of the ones you circled on the calendar before the season started. So with that said, this week 8 game for them is a formality. It's in the way. It's just a game that they have to get through to get to Dallas next week. And because of that, we're going to have an opportunity to sneak these boys. Now, again, doesn't really matter if we don't take advantage of opportunities, if we don't do the little things correct, if we're going to have a bunch of penalties, if we can't protect. Doesn't really matter if they overlook us or not. Them overlooking us is still good enough to beat us if we don't play our brand of football. What the hell is our brand of football? What am I even talking about? If we don't play our best football, whatever that looks like. We don't have a brand of football. We don't even have an identity. So I can't use that phrase. We just got to play the best football that we can play. It has to look something like the week 4 matchup in terms of offense. And we need the defense to play better than they did. When Jalen Hurts carved us up, A.J. Brown goes off for 175 yards and 2 tubs. We can't give up the big explosive plays like we did in week number 4. The catch to Devontae Smith before half that led to a field goal when we were up 17-7 on a 3rd down when we could have got off the field. Like, that shit can't happen. So if we can control some of that, limit the things, and we'll talk about keys to victory and all of that good jazz like we always do on tomorrow's show. But the overarching theme for me here is that they're not overlooking us because they don't respect us or don't think we're capable. They know we're fully capable. We've got their attention from that standpoint. I think human nature sets in. They know who's looming around the corner. And I absolutely think that they're looking at week. Now, you saw, and I get it. L.B.'s a fan. Fans do this more than players do. Players usually are locked in at the task at hand, and they don't have the opportunity to look ahead on the schedule. But I think the Eagles are the players are in the same kind of mindset as L.B. L.B. spent 3/4 of the night on the NFC East Super Friends stream talking right past me, right over me, talking to Law. as if week 8 didn't exist. I even made the comment, hey, you do play us this week. You're going to stop talking the law like that's your upcoming opponent. But the reality of the situation is they're not worried about us. They're worried about Dallas. And that's our end. That's our opportunity. That's what we're going to have to use as an opportunity to sneak these boys. Because at face value, them playing their best, us playing our best, we can't beat them. We can't beat them. But with them slightly distracted, maybe we can. So we're going to have to hope that they come out flat again, like they did in week 4. And we come out sharp like we did in week 4. And this time the defense, which I think is actually playing better football right now. Hope that the defense plays better and doesn't force the offense to have to score 34 to win, and instead can just score the 31 that we just scored, or the 27 that we are capable of scoring, or the 28 or the 29, and have that hold up and be enough. We know we can move the football on Philadelphia's defense. And I like the changes that are being made on the offensive line. The only question mark is going to be Ricky Stromberg. Can he hold up? I would have preferred Sadiq be available and just change out the center, and bring in Tyler Larson, who we know is capable of getting it done and can play against this Eagles team because he did it last year. Not once, but twice. Well, he didn't play the first game because he was still out. The second game, he was in the lineup for that game, and he was damn good. But again, we'll see. We'll see what those changes mean and if they hold up, and does Sam have time, and can he do the things that we know he's capable of doing? Can he take advantage of opportunities? Can our receivers win against the Eagles coverage? Can we make some big plays down the field? Can we get into third and manageables? Can we convert? We converted. I thought our best day on third down came against the Eagles. We were 8 of 17. 8 of 17. That was our best day on third downs this season. I don't know what that number looked like against Denver. I'd have to check and see. But the Eagles game, first of all, I know we didn't have 17 third downs against Denver. I can just tell you that right now. It might have been more like 11, maybe 12. We didn't have 17, though. We got into third and short and manageable a ton in that game because we were good on first and second down. Hell, we were great on first and second down. Whether it was running the ball or a short, quick pass game that got us into those manageable third down. And then Sam was dynamite. We need to be like that again. But we'll talk more about it. But the overarching theme of going behind enemy lines is just telling you the psyche of the Eagles. They're not overlooking us because they don't respect us or don't think we're capable. They're overlooking us because of what lies ahead. Dallas and Buffalo and San Francisco. These are the teams on the schedule for them coming up. We're the least of their worries right now. Shit's about to get real for them, and they ain't looking at us, they're looking past us. That's the opportunity that we need, and we got to take advantage of it. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I appreciate you guys kicking it with me. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Saturday. You'll be getting a Saturday episode to replace this episode being out a day late. So instead of this being a Thursday-Friday combo, it'll be a Friday-Saturday combo. So you'll get my keys to victory with the game plan, and then, of course, my final outcome of what I think is going to take place. You'll get that at noon on Saturday, so be on the lookout. Maybe even 10. I think I'm going to go with 10 a.m. Saturday morning. Okay? So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, I digress. You guys know what it is. Get out of here. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you on Saturday for the final episode of Commanders Nightly News this week. Have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone.